Hello everyone, my name is Sugar and welcome to another video on my channel. So today I'm going to talk about pros and cons of having a septum piercing because there is not already a million videos like this on YouTube. Also, the timing to lose the ball from my piercing was perfect. I lost it 2 days ago, so I have only one now, and there's no point in wearing only one. So yeah, I do have a septum piercing, it just doesn't have balls. I've got my septum piercing in, I think, October 2015, so I have it for more than 3 years now. Of course, I have done it professionally, and when it comes to aftercare, for taking off the scabs of the nose, or oh, here is my regular piercing poking out. So for taking off the scabs from the septum and from the jewelry, I was using 3% hydrogen, if that's how you pronounce it. I'm thinking hydrogen peroxide, and it is commonly used for mouth washing if you have like tiny wounds in your mouth, or you just want to clean your mouth a little bit better. Also, I don't have voice for more than a week, and also my nose is stuffy, and I noticed that when my nose is stuffy, it's hard for me to speak in English, so bear with me. So I decided that I'm going to talk about cons first, and then I'm going to talk about pros of having septum piercing. I just wanted to say that I wanted a septum piercing for years, like since I was about 12. So I was so happy when I finally got it, and when I take it off, I don't feel like myself. I'm so used to having it. So when it comes to the first con, I haven't experienced this, but people say that it can smell. It can smell like when you have stretched ears and don't clean them regularly, or your jewelry in your ears when you don't clean them regularly. So I guess if you clean your septum piercing regularly, you won't have the smelly piercing. This one is like kind of big con, kind of not. You get used to it. Um, Winters in Serbia are very cold. The temperature goes to like minus 20 Celsius during the winter, and of course, your septum piercing is metal. So when you go out, it immediately gets cold, and breathing is a struggle because air that goes into your nose while you are breathing is so much colder than it would be if you didn't have a septum piercing. So that's not the most pleasant feeling in the world. Also, healing a septum piercing can be really tricky. Um, Getting a septum piercing is not painful at all. At least it wasn't for me. My nostril piercing was more painful than my septum, but of course you have scabs at the both sides, and when you want to clean your jewelry, you move the jewelry and scab is on the jewelry itself. So if you don't clean it the way that there is not a single spot left from, like a single scab left on it, and I usually had like one tiny spot of scabs inside, on this inside side of the jewelry. If there is at least one tiny spot left, when you pull it to the other side to clean the other side, you are pulling the scab through the wound of a piercing, and that is really really, really, really painful. And the pain lasts for a while. And because your eyes are near your nose, crying is inevitable. People always say that one pro of a septum piercing or having a septum piercing is that it never closes up. I guess it depends on a person, and I guess that's more accurate if you have at least slightly stretched septum. Because when I take my jewelry off, um, my piercing doesn't close completely, but it is so hard to put the jewelry back. I usually, when it comes to that, I usually put an earring through my septum piercing, like the tiniest one, and then when I'm sure that this tiny one can go through, then I go and put this one, which is basically the standard 18 gauge or 16 gauge. I'm not sure. It is the same one as I have in my nose, and it is so painful. Like I must pull it, like I must push it to the middle and then like have a break and then push it all the way, and like touching my nose hurts for a week after that. And it didn't hurt me at all when I pierced it and when it was swollen. But when I'm pushing my jewelry after like a week or more of not wearing it, it can be really painful. And now we can get to pros of having a septum piercing. I'd say that it is the one of the easiest one to take care of if you are doing it right. Also, nostril piercing is pretty easy taking care of. So you can hide it when you want to hide it. Also, I need to show you something. This piercing, like this jewelry, when you have balls on the both sides, I have a really thick septum and I can't flip it up. But if I'm, oh no, I have two of the same. So these are the same. You see that these ends of a piercing are going like this inside, but there is the same curved barbell, but it's not going like this, it's going a little bit wider, like this, like straight down. If I'm wearing that, I can casually flip it up. Also, if you don't want your parents or whoever to see your septum piercing when you get a piercing, please leave it down until it heals. It's like a few days, week at the most, or leave it up. If you are flipping it up and down constantly, it will never heal. As I said, the pain scale is different for everyone, but to me, this piercing wasn't painful at all. It was like 1 on the scale from 1 to 10. This one was more painful. It was like 2 or 3. But you have to be prepared that, as I mentioned already, your nose is close to your eyes. And when the needle goes through your nose, your eyes will start watering. Also, if you're going to the professional, they will find the spot in your nose which is called the sweet spot, and there is only skin, so they are not piercing through the cartilage. This piercing heals very quickly. I think that mine healed in like 3 or 4 days, maybe the week at the most, but it depends on how are you healing in general. I am not healing that fast, but this was incredibly fast. Also, one more pro of having a septum piercing is that when you take it out, you don't have a visible scar. For example, this one is not the tiniest one in the world, so this is not very thin. And I don't like very thin nostril piercings because they like fall out of my nose. And when I take this out, I have a pretty visible hole in my nose. If I'm not wearing this jewelry for like a year, I guess that hole would be like smaller, tinier, but it will still be there. If you have your lips pierced, you will have a hole when you take the jewelry out. And this is inside your nose. If you decide to flip up your piercing or take it out, no one would ever know that you ever had a piercing in your nose. That would be it. I didn't want to mention that a con can be that people will tell you that you look like a bull, that you look prettier without the thing in your nose, yada yada yada. Who cares what other people think? And I must admit that I was expecting a lot of, let's say, backlash from strangers and from people I know. I was expecting a lot of staring. I get a pretty big amount of staring, but I got so many compliments on my septum piercing, and I didn't expect that at all. The the funniest and the compliments that means the most to me are like compliments from grandmas at the bus. Because who would say that grandma would like this thing in my nose? Also, one thing that I wanted to mention is that if your piercing is crooked right before or right after piercing it, it's like if it's like this, like one side in front, one in the back, that is completely normal. Um my septum piercing was crooked because the piercer was pushing needle this way, and this side wasn't swollen at all, but this one where the needle got out got very swollen, and my jewelry was crooked for about a week or a little bit more, and after that it sits perfectly straight. So no worries if that happens to you. I feel like this video was like all like up and downs, unplanned, not very professional, but I'm not professional either. I feel like there is a lot of other people's videos on this same topic that are maybe a little bit more, I don't want to say professionally done, but maybe more serious done. But I still wanted to say what my experience were. Like for 3.5 years, I didn't have a single problem with my septum piercing. I adore it. I can't look at myself without it, but I'm weird to myself when I'm not wearing it, and I I don't know why, but after getting this piercing, I got more confident. So yeah, there is a lot to it. Of course, every piercing has a con, but I think that there are more pros than cons, and I also think that if you like it and if there is no health issue or something like that, all the cons are totally worth it. So I guess I will see you in my next video, or you will see me. Until then, see ya!